This short screencast gives us a good overview, big picture ideas about the Greek Dark Ages. Most of this comes right out of the reading from our Western Civilization text, but there's some additional pieces involved to be sure. One of the things that we want to keep in mind, we want to think about what is a Dark Age. Whoops, let's undo that. That's messy. What is a Dark Age? And is it a term specific to Greece? And the answer is no, it's not a term specific to Greece at all. In fact, it's one that we see throughout history. What does the term Dark Ages mean? Well, economic hardship, political instability, climate problems, natural disasters, external threats, and then, of course, a retreat of the elements of sugar, these are all aspects of the Greek Dark Ages. But one of the other reasons that we call Dark Ages a Dark Age is because of a relative lack of the historical record. In other words, a lot of the sources that we might read now in order to understand a period of history simply aren't there, or in relatively small numbers. And part of this is because as sugar-wheat retreats, when writing retreats, or art or urban settlements retreat, then we are going to find less of an historical record. We got to think about the Greek Dark Ages and where they came from. We're going to focus a little bit on Mycenae specifically. Dorian invaders from the north, along with the Sea Peoples, started to undermine trade, increased in civil wars between various Mycenaean settlements. Probably earthquakes and drought also upset the agriculture and therefore the trade. When trade is upset, we're going to get political instability, especially when we think about our redistributive economy can be undermined by drought. And then the emergence of the Greek social elite and the Homeric ideal, the emphasis on the cultivation of the individual excellence. Try that again, excellence. In this age, a lot of the stories that are told deal with people like Achilles or the story of the Odyssey, which are Bronze Age stories. The Trojan War is a Bronze Age war. But we think of it, the story of Achilles in the Iliad, as both a Bronze Age story, and a Dark Age story, or an Iron Age story, to be more specific. We're calling it now the Iron Ages because of the development of iron. The reason we call it a Bronze Age story and an Iron Age story is because it was about the Bronze Age, but told during the Iron Age. And because it's told during the Iron Age, we certainly would see that we would certainly see characteristics of the Iron Age working its way into the stories. Here's an example of some of the kind of huts that might be found. This does not go back to the Dark Ages or the Iron Age, but the kind of huts that the Greeks would have lived in during the Dark Ages, as opposed to the large palaces. Here's some examples of some iron tools and weapons that come from the period. The Olympics, significant in the ability to cultivate arte. Here's a good piece of art demonstrating men in a competition. Certainly we see kind of the strength. It's hard to tell the pointer against this orange background, but these very athletic bodies in an Olympics is a way to demonstrate your excellence as an individual. We see that the Olympics were set up in the early 8th century BCE, 776. They were set up to honor Zeus. People from around the Greek world competed as individuals, not teams. There was strict behavioral codes. You demonstrated your excellence by excelling at athletics, but also by living up to these codes. And this was a beginning step towards a collective Greek identity. As we said, they come from all over cities, all over the Greek world. By collective Greek identity, we mean a sense of Greekness, as opposed to just simply loyalty or identity in your own particular city. Here we see chariot racing here on this vase of an Olympic sport. And then finally, looking at Greek justice, sense of Greek justice. We will look at this more closely for sure, but a couple of writers that we pay attention to is Homer. Try that again. Homer and Hesiod. Homer sings about the strength of Achilles and also the cleverness of Odysseus in the books the Iliad and the Odyssey. Homer talks about the gods, but he doesn't think of the gods as very just, actually. Zeus was very jealous. Poseidon routinely took sides. Hesiod's view was a little bit different. As we work through some of Hesiod's works, we see that a quote from Hesiod that's pretty important, this one here: "Fish and wild beasts eat each other, but humans have been given justice." I should say that's not actually a quote, but a paraphrase. Warned that people who cheated would be served divine justice. This is a sense that this is the beginning of a sense of justice rather than just strength as what was important in individuals. In the Bronze Age, for sure, just pure strength is what mattered. But in the later in the Iron Age, sense of justice starts to emerge in the works of Hesiod. And finally, these pictures are just some sculptures of 3 individuals that are important. Hesiod and Homer are the authors of some of the text. Odysseus, of course, is a character in the Odyssey. Odysseus is very, very clever. He's smart. As a hero, he's more successful as a hero because of his brains. Odysseus's brains. Achilles, who I don't have a picture of Achilles here, but Achilles is a hero because of his might. So this begins to show a transition away from just pure brute strength as to what it means to be a good Greek, to Odysseus's version of a good Greek, being clever and smart.